Welcome to Stormwatch by Grey Noise Intelligence. Each week we cover the latest info on what's happening at Grey Noise, Census, Vulncheck, and Run Zero. Take a look at the roundup of important timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. Today, with an extra cringeworthy and ill-planned episode, we'll start with a quick review of some poll results that really got, I don't know if you want to say sadly or happily, the most traction. We'll review those poll results and a list of cyber-focused reporters and journalists that we follow and trust as a follow-up from last week's show. We'll then jump into the Wayback Machine to 2007, where we unearth Steve Chrisley's paper on Unforgivable Vulnerabilities and see if we've made any improvements and prove that we haven't by discussing recent vulns in everyone's favorite remote access device. Kind of ruined the spoiler there in the tease, didn't we?
Sorry.
The crew then uses the paper to pivot to AI and security and software development to discuss how many of the co-pilots and AI assistants tend to make the same mistakes that the paper outlines, and offer guidance on how to approach and hopefully avoid some of those same issues. And if we have time, the Ballista Botnet is making the news, and it seems appropriate to poke at it in a quick segment. And finally, we'll pay homage to... Wait, what? Sorry. Oh, I got distracted. We'll pay homage to what we've been up to across the companies with latest updates and blog posts and some happenings, like we have RSA coming up right around the corner. So first, let's jump in and go around the room, do some highs and lows. You may notice that there is no Bob today. And, well, some of you may know it's severance finale week, so that means that Bob is very busy. He's got his corkboard out with his strings and his yarns and his theories, and he was going to the goat farm this morning, so I don't know what's going on, but Bob is very distracted right now. But we did make quite the upgrade, and we have Emily with us this week, so welcome back, Emily. And with that, let's go around. I'll start with you, Emily, since I just mentioned your name. Highs and lows, what's going on? What's on your mind?
Oh, no, I was not prepared for this. A high is that I am alive this morning.
Okay. Wow. All right.
That also could be a low depending on your perspective. But yeah, it's a beautiful day outside. Like the weather is kind of starting to turn here in Atlanta, which is really nice, like really sunny, beautiful, that kind of like golden.
Did you get your run in this morning?
I did, and it was lovely.
Nice. Perfect.
Low. I don't have a...
You don't have to do both. It's okay. You can just go with high. Let's be high. Yeah.
I'm awake, and it's sun shining outside. That's my...
All right. Yeah, let's make it a little lighter than how it started. Yeah. Imogen, you're up next. How's the weather in the Northeast?
Hello. It's pretty chilly but sunny, and I realized this winter that I prioritize sun over temperatures if I have to choose between them. Yes, because I am a plant and I need to photosynthesize.
Okay.
Hard to top being alive. Because
wow.
10 out of 10 experience there. Maybe not as of late, but I had a great one in mind and now I've forgotten it, I think. But I was going to say something really witty and amazing. I think that my main high is that I'm glad that Bob is taking a little breather, because I think we all know that he deserves a little breather from gestures broadly. And simultaneously, I'm so excited that Emily has decided to weigh in on gestures broadly. Yay! I think it's going to be a good show.
We may have figured out how to social engineer Emily, since I think it was probably a topic about journalism and cybersecurity that brought her on board today.
It did kind of, you got me. I feel cyberbullied.
Yeah. Awesome. Todd, how was South by Southwest? How was your talk?
It was great. That's my high. Over and done. Hooray. I do like talking, and I like yammering on stage and telling people about security stuff. But I especially like having done it.
Yes.
It's
the 2 minutes after is a pretty good feeling, huh?
It is. It is. Yeah, I spoke at South by with my good friend Paige. She is a pen tester. And so we played the characters of 1940s detective noir style. I was a washed up Fed who got bounced off the force for going too far. And she is a online cat burglar with a heart of gold.
I love nonfiction. That sounds great.
I did not get bounced off the force in real life. And
is this recorded anywhere? Are we gonna get to see it?
No, it is lost to the ether. There's a couple photographs out there in my extremely tall pants. Because tall pants, short tie, can't lose. It is very much a 1940s choice. Go watch Double Indemnity. It's one of the best movies ever made, obviously. And just watch the waistline on the gentleman's pants.
Oh my gosh! So you're not joking. You had high-waisted pants.
I had high-waisted pants and suspenders and a very short tie.
Putting out a call for these photos.
Yep. It was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. So that's obviously my high.
Awesome.
I didn't have any lows this week. Everything's
nice.
Come to Bill House. So
awesome. Overlord. Excited for Severance. Emily is here. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with both of those.
I have a low. I have just remembered a low. I think I might be too stupid to watch Severance.
No.
There's no way.
No.
And I have some friends that they're like, I'm not gonna watch season 2 until it's all out, which I get because it is binge worthy. But I think, and Emily did this. This is a compliment. Emily did this to me. The best part of Severance and shows like that is having one episode a week and then spending the week thinking about all of the theories and then reading the subreddits and stuff. Like, it is so binging it is valid to see the show, but like I've more enjoyed just thinking about it a week at a time. So
yeah,
but anyway, this is not the Severance podcast,
right? So
yeah, we could maybe next week we'll have a Severance After Dark. I don't know.
Okay.
For me, I was on vacation last week. As I did watch the show afterwards, and I saw that Bob, unauthorized, took a photo of that I had sent him and put it on the show. I'm not ashamed of my spicy watermelon margarita. That was delicious. It was perfect desert drink. So
I'm on your side.
That no shame there. But so that was my high. I had a pretty good vacation. All right, so we will pivot, and we have no slides today. So if you're just listening, you're golden. Just look in the show notes or the comments for the links that we're talking about. But we did have a poll, as mentioned earlier, that had quite a bit of responses. So basically, the question was, what is your favorite hacking movie? And your options were Hackers, Mr. Robot, Sneakers, and War Games. And the first thing we have to mention is there was a lot of people coming at us with putting Mr. Robot as a movie.
First off, brilliant move for stickiness and engagement. Brilliant.
True. The algorithm appreciated the engagement for sure.
It reminds me of how, like, if you want a real answer to a Stack Overflow post, you like post the slightly wrong answer, and then like you'll get somebody who's like, no, actually, let me tell you. Like,
also, be a woman, like when you do it,
yes.
right?
Yeah, double whammy, like, yeah.
Oh
yeah,
man,
for sure.
Yeah, there's got to be some study on like a
Robot as a movie because the original screenplay was originally intended to be a feature-length film that then got padded out to a season of TV. So,
I mean, I love season 1. It's an 8-hour movie, right? Like,
sure, yeah, and
it got a little much after that, but season 2, all right, and then I was out. Like, but so again, the differences in platform showed up for this, which I don't know why I'm obsessed with this, but so on the dark social media site, Mr. Robot did win, although it got the most comments about why is it included. So.
Oh my God, that's Mastodon all over. Oh, is that Twitter? No, sorry.
That was Twitter. Yeah. So you gotta look yourself in the mirror, folks. There. But number 1 was Mr. Robot. Number 2 was Hackers, and then on Mastodon, Sneakers was the winner. with war games in second.
Perfect.
And then on LinkedIn, Mr. Robot, followed by hackers. So it's fun for me. It's fun to see the different audiences show up in these poll results. Also, a good reminder: when you see a poll, you should question, like, its target, its format, etc. Right? So don't just take polls at face value. Yeah. And I think that kind of leads us. Oh well, does anyone have any hot takes on any of those 4 movies?
I mean, the Mastodon answers are the most correct.
Are they? Let's see what were they. Oh, I voted for War Games just because that one just hits me right in the heart. Like, that's just, it's more nostalgia for me than actual, like, but.
I watched War Games in the theater, and it's probably 4% of why I am the way I am.
Oh, wow. I can't say I've seen it in the theater. Sorry, Todd. All right. So with that, actually, speaking of trusting your sources and questioning everything, we're going to jump into our first segment, unless I forgot anything. We're going to jump into our first segment about reporters and journalism. And I believe this is a follow-up to a topic from last week. So I'm just going to hand it over to Emily and put a quarter in, as Bob would say, wind her up and let her roll.
Oh boy.
So what's up with reporting in cyber?
So yeah, I think it was last week, we talked about Kim Zetter's really excellent piece that she put out. I mean, all of her stuff is great, but she wrote an article titled, "Did Trump admin order US Cyber Command and CISA to stand down on Russia?" And so this was sort of a dismantling of these stories that were making the rounds, because there was a lot of confusion and a lot of like panic, I think, within the community around like what's going on. And she sort of meticulously like broke things down and was like, okay, hold on, like this is what CISA does. This is cybercop. Like, hold on, these are not the same thing. Like, let's like actually unpack this. And it's sort of, we were talking about this again this week, and just sort of the importance of journalists who, you know, are on this beat, who really have an understanding of the organizations, the technology, like kind of various components of it, to the point that they could probably like hop over and do like research if that's what they actually wanted to do, like security research, like they're already doing research.
And some of them have.
Some of them do. Some of them have.
From journalism to some, you know, just like hackery stuff. And then sometimes they come back.
Yeah.
Turns out data scientist makes more than journalist, though.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like the importance of having these folks on this beat, because like I think in media and in any kind of vertical, right? Like you are helping actively shape the conversations that are happening in the world, whether it's about domestic politics, global current events, you know, topics in cyber, particularly like if you're at a big publication that isn't like a cyber publication specifically, like you're influencing things that are being discussed in boardrooms or that executives are coming and talking to their security teams about. And so it's like a really important, I think, vital role, right? And like the relationships that, you know, we as researchers and practitioners get to build with folks doing this work, I think is really important. And ironically, one of the things that kind of came up over the last week was something that sort of, I think, directly sort of went against this kind of discerning and kind of digging into details kind of methodology. So I saw an article posted. I'm not going to name and shame. If you saw these things, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I saw an article posted about a major threat actor's recent activity. Like there was some new activity around an organization, I think in the Northeast US. And I was like, here, read this article. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm really interested. This is relevant to what I'm looking at. And I read the article in a security like trade publication. And then I clicked through to read the actual report. And it was a marketing use case or a marketing case study. And there were no TTPs, there were no IOCs, there was no technical teardown, there was no like new explosive finding. It was a marketing document. And to be clear, marketing documents are totally fine. Like if you're doing a feature release, if you're doing, you know, a new product offering, like absolutely, like get your PR team to go out and talk about that. But make sure it's under the guise of that and not, you know, research, because I feel like there's two things that happen when things like this get like published and talked about, at least for me. And I'm curious of others' thoughts on this. So for me, when I see this, one, the publication itself, like I kind of start to call into question their ability to discern, what is actually news, what is actually worth reporting on. Because I know some journalists who also got this pitch and passed on it because they're like, this isn't really news, like cool, but this isn't exactly like, this is not new. And then too, like on the vendor, like it doesn't really look great either. Like you have to, I think, be genuine about what you're pitching and how you're like framing these things. And so, while there are a lot of great journalists doing really excellent work and who, like I said, I know said, no, I'm actually not going to write about that. I think it just speaks to the fact that even like now more than ever, we probably need to be more discerning about what gets to make headlines. I'm curious what folks think about this. Now I'm off my soapbox.
I'm curious why this. I wonder if we could. Basically, I'm curious how it went from marketing, and since I was out last week, I'm a little off kilter with the stories and the happenings. But how do we think it went from a normal like case study marketing document to news?
Well,
Is it just because it
team
had
probably pitched it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this tells me that the source of this marketing report, of this case study, right, which is I believe purely a product like case study, right? It's like, you should buy our thing and here's why. Their PR team must be excellent to trick journalists into writing about it.
Okay.
Under the headline of news, right? Because like there are and there are avenues and there are whole outlets, right, of like industry magazines, and this is where you pitch your marketing stuff, right? And this is where you pitch your case studies and the like, let me tell you the story of like Run Zero and like blah blah blah, right? Like there are avenues for that.
Sure.
And I'm with you, Emily. Like it is annoying to me to get halfway through an article and then think, this feels like a product pitch. Let's see what the actual okay, all right, that's 30 seconds I'm never getting back.
Yes, and over time they just add up and add up. This is not the first time I've seen this. It just happened to be very timely that like it happened within the last like week or two. But yeah, this is not a new phenomenon by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certainly
Also,
go ahead.
I was going to talk about, like, I've seen this. I know that we're kind of obfuscating the original report, but I've seen the same behavior happen a lot with Salt Typhoon in particular, the reporting on Salt Typhoon. And just like, it feels like this football, what do they call it when they pile up? Just like we have like the first article that said nothing, and now like everyone's like,
dog
oh
pile.
my god, we gotta throw our dog pile. Thank you. Notice that there's no such thing as a cat pile. I wonder which one is the superior pet. Anyway.
Ooh, wow.
Wow. Okay, we'll come back.
We have our poll for next week.
Too hot. But yeah, I think and Todd, you got to the point of it. It's like a huge time waster, especially like in my role. And a lot of roles, you're like the first 30 minutes to an hour of your day is like kind of that triage of, okay, what the hell happened in the past 24 hours and how much of it is going to derail my day. And then seeing a headline like this and thinking, okay, and then like you have to get halfway through before you realize it. No new information has been reported, which again, we've talked about this, like journalism is a very stressful job. And I would honestly say that a lot of this is not really up to them. It's up to the, management of these news outlets. It's up to the editors whose job it is to like maximize clicks and maximize eyeballs. Like this is about the attention economy kind of indirectly, but I wish that it didn't have to trickle down to individual researchers and people who do not have enough time in the day to sort through them.
Well, it's kind of the same thing where it's talking about that, where it's about getting clicks and getting eyes. I've noticed anecdotally, I have not measured this, but this might be an interesting project. Over the last year, at least, I feel like I have seen an increase in the number of security publications that are talking about when CISA adds ICS advisories. And I'm not talking about like actual like breakdowns of like, here's activity. It's not tied to anything recent. It's just Siemens has like 17 things going on.
It's like a RSS feed, but it's through a publication or a news site.
And it's like a piece of prose. And I'm like,
RSS with ads.
Yeah. Like I don't, and maybe to be fair, maybe I am not the target audience of these because I know that I can sign up for these for free from CISA directly. So they just come to my inbox and I don't need to read all the fluff. I just click on the advisories if I want to read them. So stuff like that, where I'm like, is this really doing any good. It doesn't feel like it to me, but again, maybe I'm not like the target audience here, but.
And we're not dogpiling on or catpiling on the journalists. You know, it as you kind of mentioned, like you need to be clear when you are pitching these things or choosing not to pitch. There's a difference in, you know, when you have a news thing or something that you think is newsworthy and you publish it, there's organic, like where it gets picked up and kind of the internet thinks it's a story, and you can't control that. That just, you know, people read it and they post about it or expand on it or whatever. And then there's like, you have a story and then you post it and then you pitch it to journalists, you know, as XYZ, and then they determine like where to go next with it. And when you're doing something like this, when it's just a marketing study, I don't mean just as to belittle the marketing part, but when it's not an actionable, like you mentioned with TTPs, IOCs, etc., you need to think about that when you basically hopefully choose not to pitch this, because it's not a breaking news story. It's something that your product can do or whatever. And we don't want to, like, you know, journalists have it hard enough. They have to write 30 things a day, you know, and they get like 1 hour on each thing to write. Like they're plowing through their life. Like, I have so much respect for the good journalists out there, because I know they're busting their butt, but you've got to like help them out a little bit. So the onus is definitely on the.
And that's the job of like whoever is responsible for original research in your security company. Yeah. Partly, right, is to be that referee and to be able to say, like, this is a product pitch. You're going to want to like aim this over here. This is like original research, and with like a call to action that is not necessarily our product. This is a real research project. You can pitch over here to like these journalists, like, and being able to like, because marketing people oftentimes cannot tell the difference. And it's not because they're stupid. It's just because that, like, in their, if I'm
it's not their expertise. Like, everyone has their lane.
I'm currently in a marketing department at Run Zero. And I've been in marketing departments at prior employers with Glenn. Glenn was never in marketing, but I was, and Glenn was always suspicious of me when I would come around and ask questions. So, but this was like Glenn's job of like, no, this is like product stuff. This is not really like newsworthy stuff. But every once in a while, Glenn would be like, this is a big deal, and here are some IOCs, and we should tell people about it. And like on it. So yeah, like
it's a
there's like
homeostasis that happens over time. Yeah,
that ideally like helps filter it for before it hits a journalist's table, right? But yeah, I mean, there are just so many outlets that literally are RSS with ads, and that's okay because, you know, capitalism. But
yeah,
and hey, by the way, I could do a better job at like having different categories for their RSS feeds. Like, this is the filter. That's what you're paying for with watching the ads, is someone filtering the RSS feed.
The comment about the typhoon, Salt Typhoon, Bull Typhoon, like pick a typhoon at this point, really hits for me too, because we, you know, like this, again, this is not a knock on any journalists, but we'll get lots of inbound questions about like, oh, you're seeing exploitation of this vuln, and, you know, it was once reported to be related to Salt Typhoon, and, you know, wanting us to dig into that like relationship. And it's, I don't know, like the Salt Typhoon thing just drives me crazy because there's so little real tangible, I mean, there's a lot of like small evidence, or not evidence, but IOCs and actual information, but everyone has such a thirst for actual information related to that, but it's such a big national security news story all the time that I understand why it's like this magnet for trying to get more information about. But it drives me crazy that it is such a big thing with so little publicly shared on it. And so,
but what you're talking about here, I think, is what separates, at least in my mind, kind of the good from the excellent in terms of security and national security reporters, right? Like, they've, again, and this comes with experience too. I think, like, you've been on the beat long enough. Maybe you were a researcher, maybe like you understand this space really well. And you know enough to know, like you're invited into the rooms where researchers are kind of talking sort of privately amongst themselves, and you kind of know, like, okay, this is the real deal with like Salt Typhoon. Like there's just not a lot out there. Like we can't make these connections. Like don't do this for clicks, what have you. So like I think that is something to aspire to, right? Like I think that is the gold standard of like cyber journalism, if you want to call it that, or security journalism, because we need more people having that. Like the bar needs to be up here, not did CISA publish an advisory and list out, again, like 20 Siemens advisories. Like that's not news. And I will say, like, that isn't news. And I will be pointed and say, like, maybe don't publish about that. If you have any say in that, like push back if you can, like, because that's not really contributing to the conversation. And I think in a meaningful way. Because again, Glenn, to your point,
copy paste, right?
Yeah. And it's like, if you're overextended, and I don't pretend to know the inner workings of newsrooms, and I don't want to like, hold anyone's feet to the fire, but I would say, from someone in the industry, like there's so much other interesting stuff happening that you could chase, like go for that and maybe leave these sort of things just to the RSS feeds that you can sign up for.
So then there's like this.
I don't have comment highlighting powers. Maybe you do, Glenn. There's a comment really curious about the actual stats for AI generated articles in tech journalism. And thank you. And this seems like an ideal place to put AI generated articles, like subscribe to this RSS feed and then write 200 words on everything that happens. And boom.
I think that's happening. Are you saying it's not happening?
No. It's definitely, it's got to be happening.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
If I have to read this underscores the critical need for one more time.
After you've delved into something. Yeah.
Gosh.
Oh, that's funny. I guess my thought on that with Emily about like, the constant like recycling, I think so much of this goes back to the click economy, the attention, like Kim just said, where I know, like I'm like website A, we know that 15 websites have published the same thing, but if we don't publish it, then people might leave our site to go read it and never come back. So it's like, but then when researchers are trying, and I'm sure this happens to every industry, but this is the one that we're in, for better or worse. But when you're trying to consume all the things to figure out what you got to work on, then you just get like when Patch Tuesday, CISA Kev release, like anything. Well, if CISA touches anything, like it's just that meme, like the oatmeal comic or whatever, of just like getting splattered in the face when you open your laptop of the same things over and over. But that's what deduplication is for. So let's use AI for that.
Well, and good research programs have a solid marketing component. Like they know how to SEO, and they know how to they know which journalists to pitch and to get good questions and get answered, right? Because there is a universe of journalists that I will read every word that they write.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I know that they don't take pitches, right?
Yeah. So like, I don't, we have, we were kind of talking pre-show a bit, but it seems like we all our Venn diagram of trusted journalists overlaps quite a bit. And it goes the same way for journalists too, where they have their trusted, it's layers of circles, right? And they have their really trusted sources, and it goes outward. So it's definitely, like everything, a relationship, a trust building exercise. But for the journalists to get the good stuff, they've got to really trust what you're telling them, and you've got to trust them if they have to, embargo something. So like, it's a living, breathing, fluid thing. But sometimes, I know we're kind of just talking around it, but the thing of last week just really like kind of popped the bubble of like, oh yeah, this can be really crappy really fast. So,
well, it was the week where like Kim Zetter untangled a pretty complicated subject about.
She put in some work. Great job.
She put in the work, and then in the same week, Emily was assaulted by a marketing paper that was posing as journalism. And so it's like, oh, okay, so this is the world, right?
Yeah, about right. All right. Well, if there's no last thoughts on that, we will go on to our next story. As I look at the time. Oh, yeah, okay, we're good. So we had teased this, but Steve Coley wrote a paper in 2007 titled Unforgivable Vulnerabilities. And it examined security flaws that really, in theory, should never appear in a properly developed software. It's defined as those that demonstrate a systematic disregard for secure development practices. It's kind of a mouthful. And would really be obvious to anyone with some kind of basic security awareness. And so in this paper, the idea is that an unforgivable vulnerability, in quotes, meets at least 3 of these 5 criteria. Precedence, meaning many other developers have made the same mistake in the past. So it's kind of basically repeated over and over. Documentation, so the issue is well documented in security resources. I feel like those are pretty closely related, but it's an evolution of learning. Obviousness, so it's apparent when you consider the possible attacks, when you threat model it. So basically you spend 5 minutes and kind of just look at it. Oh, actually that kind of ruined point number 5, which is you could find the issue in 5 minutes. And the last one is attack simplicity, which is it's pretty basic. Hemija joked about the AI verbiage. It's not AI, but one of my verbiage that sends me is the sophisticated word, as that's just everything is sophisticated all the time.
We could do an episode about this. I hate this.
Yeah.
I hate this.
It means you got phished, or it means you didn't install. Basically, it means nothing is actually what sophisticated means. It means you got caught. You got pantsed.
Filler word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you got pantsed.
So glad. Unforgivable Vulnerabilities by one Steve Coley. This was published like last month, right? This is like breaking news.
It was published 2007.
2007. So 22 years ago.
It could drink in the US. It could go to the bar and buy a drink in the US. Yes.
And yet, yeah.
At that time, these were unforgivable.
Right.
And yet, even now, we still see them, which is shocking.
What else is unforgivable from 2007? Do we want to go there?
I don't know, Glenn. I don't get your reference.
Flare jeans are back. I don't know what you're talking about.
Everything is cyclical. So, so very old paper, 2007. And
very recent examples. And those examples, it's called the SysACAV.
The SysACAV, yes. He does go on.
There are plenty of vulnerabilities recently that are, / your way to victory, right? Like stupid old bugs. There are other bugs on the Kev that are like crazy complicated. I'm thinking specifically of like the Qualcomm radio bugs that, it is the kinds of bugs that the Iranian government uses to target journalists. Those are crazy complicated. They also make the Kev, but I think the ratio is probably 3 or 4 to 1 on that.
Like a forgivable vulnerability, a forgivable breach, a forgivable, a truly sophisticated example is, I think it was last fall, with the Sophos paper that talked about like this very years-long campaign to breach
Pacific Rim.
Is that what? I think that's it.
I think that was what
it started with a conference tablet or something, right? Conference room, something. Anyway, like that one one took time, effort, pivots, like wasn't it wasn't just like // like directory traversal through to the Etsy file, like whatever. So there is a time and place for those word choices, but when we look at the Kev, when we look at Avanti, we don't feel that those are unforgivable anymore. I don't know if anyone has a disagreement on that statement.
No. Furthermore, Avanti generally doesn't write these bugs. They acquire these bugs, generally speaking, I would say.
But is that an excuse?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Does that make it better or worse, actually?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, it's just, I know it's a data point. They're not sitting there like writing, like, yes, I'm going to write this in Perl today, and I'm going to like just not do any framework stuff.
This is a great comment. Number 5, directory traversal using that Slash from the Lucky 13 was living in 2024 and probably 23. I feel like as well. Well, since COVID, really, it's just kind of.
Also, Spider-Man 3 was also gone. That's
Emma, I think you had something you were gonna.
Yeah.
You wanted to say to us.
So I wanted to pose a philosophical question because I don't know the answer, which is something that's covered pretty early on in the report, which is like this idea that are there more vulns, or are we just like hammering software more, and like is reporting different? And the paper talks about how like high profile quote unquote software, which I would lump Ivanti and most VPN vendors into, just is getting hammered all the time by threat actors and also by pen testers. And so like you'll see the stream of vulnerabilities, but it just means that disclosure is better. But at the same time, right, like how many unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerabilities can we see per month before it's not a reporting problem, or it's not like good reporting, it's just bad software?
I don't know.
If a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Right? It's kind of the same.
I mean, I think you can have both, right? Like where we are churning out and acquiring and repackaging and trying to integrate, more software more often, more quicker, and then also doing better reporting. We have so many more CVE numbering authorities now. We've got like 400 and something at this point. Many of them don't report anything, but some of them report a lot.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't.
And some of them don't report anything.
Yeah.
Negatively.
Yes, and they may try to rosy them up and all that, but and then you have kind of the normalization of pen testing and red teaming. Like when I was starting out in this industry, penetration testing was a crime that you have to deal with. And so just the normalization of hacking in general, right? So you have these three forces. You have more hackers, more reporters, and more vulnerabilities. Like you actually do have more vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And how do they, and so thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I mean, that sounds like more, right?
There's more everything. There's more things on the internet. There's more people using the internet. There's more devices per person on the internet. Like there's literally more everything. So honestly, I feel like the question that Himage poses is truly like impossible to answer and philosophical, because it's chicken and egg, whatever example you want to use. But maybe it's time to update this 2007 paper with another criteria, which is if you are a security company and a repeat offender as well, then it's double unforgivable, double jeopardy. I don't know. But
yeah, if your device is the device that hangs out on the edge of the network and is the thing that controls access to other things, you got to be extra. You are right. Like it really sucks when your EDR blue screens your entire fleet.
Yeah.
If you are,
but it doesn't get hacked if it's blue screened. Sorry, Imogen.
I was making an edgelord joke.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Insert edgelord joke here.
So before we leave this topic, something that I actually want to bring up here, and I might have missed it in the preamble of the paper because I admittedly skimmed it. However, the 3 of the 5 criteria, one of the criterions is a criterion is obviousness, which is that the issue is immediately apparent when considering possible attacks. This is interesting to me because who is it obvious to? Because to you or me, yeah, sure, maybe. Sanitize your input. Please do not pass things directly to anything under a lot. You handle that somewhere properly in your middle layer. But I wonder at this point, this actually does feel kind of like a little unforgivable if you're a software dev to not kind of know some of these basic OWASP type things if you're working on web-facing things. But that sticks out in my head because it's sort of this whole this is obvious. And it's well, maybe it isn't. And if it isn't, why isn't it? And how do we close that gap?
I have two things. Emily, that is Brilliant and insightful, for starters. It is, so the obviousness, I think, comes from, like, let me rephrase. If I'm writing like an IoT thing that talks to, like, some kind of process that talks to the cloud, right? And I'm the developer, I do not often, I have found, developer does not consider the thing to be a person or a user, right? And so the user supplied input test in my brain never gets tripped. It's like, oh, it's just it's a machine talking to another machine. It's machine to machine communication. And so many times when we're looking at IoT stuff, it's like, oh, clearly they just thought that only machines would be talking to this and not hackers, right? Like, not somebody would come along and say, like, well, what if I did just like ... or what if I put in a %2f? Like, because the machine's never going to do that. That they're writing the protocol against, right? So that's one. Secondly, I love going to developer conferences and talking about security because I'm the smartest guy in the room for 45 minutes. The rest of the time, I'm a total dullard. But like, I have
can't watch Severance, but you can. Okay.
I can't follow Severance.
Just working on the hierarchy.
Right. But like, I've gone to like Ruby conferences in the long ago, and every time it was like there was somebody in the audience whose eyes would just like keep widening when I start talking about, like, %2f, like, it's like, oh,
and that's really interesting.
That's why we use Rails. we don't just like handle things. So,
well, is it something? Because that is something I haven't thought about, Emily. But is it something like in the realm of where, I'm trying to think of a better example, but basically, like, anyone can write software, no matter how simple, like just a thing. Hello,
even AI can write software.
Yeah, exactly. But anyone can write it. Don't ruin our next story. But then anyone can just throw it online, and then it, as soon as it works, it's done, and then it gets put online, and then someone else finds it useful, and then it gets baked into a third party device or appliance, whatever, and then it just starts building from there, right? Where, like, I don't know, like, if your job is transporting wide loads through cities, like, you have you have to get permits, and you have to, I can't think of a better example, but you have to get there's a process of things to do. So when you think about what's obvious, like to the pilot car, it's like, obviously we can't go under a bridge that's lower than the height of this load. Whereas in software, there's no, for better and worse, there's no barriers. You just do it, and if it works, it works. And then if someone likes it, they like it, and it just takes on its own like thing. So it kind of, that's where we start getting back into the vendors, for at least commercial products, like the vendors' accountability or liability on these things, which I have strong feelings about, but I don't think we have time for it today. I think we all do, probably, though. Well, Steve, I think we need to update your paper with a couple of things. Yeah. Still relevant, so that's cool and all, I guess. But with Emily's teaser,
way with their CISA Secure by Design, like, riffs on Steve's paper quite a bit. So for more information, Google Secure by Design CISA. I'm sure it's still there.
And also, a lot of companies took that pledge, but honestly haven't seen it.
Don't. Can we not?
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, not for today, people. But we're gonna pivot now because Emily set it up perfectly. Speaking of anything writing code, there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard about, called artificial intelligence, AI for short. Might be breaking news for you, but it has made people like me able to write code and scripts.
Benjamin can write code.
Even I can watch Severance and I can use AI. And it has made me scripts that I run locally to do things. It's great. Like, it has been an insane helpful thing for a lot of people, but it's also been an insane way to keep doing the same thing over and over, keep introducing the same issues over and over, kind of that repeatability that we teased about. So let's pivot into talking about AI and security engineering. How is that at all related to the Vulns of 22 years ago?
I'm just curious, do you do a security review before you run these things locally? Like, do you
On
look
my,
Yeah,
oh,
on
so the
code
scripts I'm
review.
talking, yeah, so I can, like, I'm not, okay, I can read code. I'm not smart enough to like write it to like make sure I have everything declared or whatever. So yeah, and these are scripts that are like just parsing out, like take a PDF, give me the IPs, like, you know, whatever, stuff like that. But
It'd be so
I'm not
easy if
doing
you
anything.
stopped putting IPs and PDFs and just gave us CSVs. How cool would that be? We wouldn't even need AI.
Ooh. Or screenshots, less screenshots of IPs.
You got to OCR.
Actually, we
It's
could.
just so stupid.
The onboard
we should-
OCR on Mac OS is actually pretty good for that.
Yeah, no, I honestly often I'll screenshot it and just be like take it from there. We could do a
So-
manifesto on the proper way to share TTVs.
No, that's a different topic. Next week. AI code writing. I'm with you, Glenn. It even makes dummies like me be able to write in languages that I don't know. I would say that like my number one use lately for vibe coding is actually just taking stuff I've written in Ruby, because I am a degenerate and I still write things in Ruby. And then I port them to Rust because, you know, the last president said that we have to rewrite everything in Rust in an executive order. So I'm taking that seriously. And also so I can run my Ruby stuff like on somebody else's Windows machine. Like that's why I do it. And I don't know hardly anything about Rust, but it tends to do a pretty good job at that. Also, I check. I do security review, even though I don't know much Rust. I will like kind of look at it, and I know that I'm not putting it in production. I'm not putting it on a device. I'm not putting it out. I'm not selling it. I'm usually just like converting a helper tool for someone else to use.
Oh man, you just touched on something. If you use AI to write code, and it is something that you are commercializing, that needs to be a whole like super duper extra process, right? Like there's a difference in making a script.
You'd like GMO labeling, but for AI generated software. Yeah.
Honestly, yes. Like I love it. We've been trying to get nutrition labels for smart things and for the SBON. Like, why don't we just have an AI nutrition label too? Like, what model, what version?
Entirely by free range developers who have at least 10 square feet of grass.
This code took 15 liters of water
Right.
to generate.
How much coffee?
So I do like AI for doing things like little things for me, right? And like just writing yet another for loop, often in a language I don't know. But it is AI. First off, AI is not real. Secondly, LLM generated code, I think, is very handy in the hands of an expert. Everybody on this
It's a tool.
Podcast, can evaluate it and can evaluate results and evaluate corner cases and have an intuition and instinct about it. It is, I do believe, a disaster in the hands of amateurs like Glenn.
I hate sounding.
Sorry, we're talking over each other. I guess we got the delay, but it's not on purpose.
So I hate the idea of sounding like gatekeepy, like don't use it, don't do. But I really agree here. Like I think, so just in my own like personal use, right? Like I'm never writing production code. If you ever see me writing production code, like send help, because no. But like for my own stuff, like maybe there's a really obscure, I work in pandas data frames a lot. So like maybe there's like an obscure, Bob will like kick me later for that. But there's like an obscure thing I want to know how to, and I'm like, I forgot how to do this. And it's helpful for like getting a lot of times like 80% of the way there, depending on the particular flavor of chat you're using. But there's still sometimes beyond even like just the security implications. It's like, I still have to fix the code that it gives me. It's not always exact. So, right. So it's like, it's not giving me like pristine stuff I can just go copy paste into a notebook and use, which I shouldn't do that anyway. But that's the other thing too, is like I feel like there's still a little bit of a curve where you do have to kind of know, well, the output should look like this, or this is really the thing that I want it to do, and be able to kind of debug what it gives you. Otherwise, I feel like you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I feel like this happens a lot with ChatGPT for me. So I have found Cody, Sourcegraph's Cody, to actually be a
Oh yeah,
lot
that's great.
better at that kind of stuff. But even still, like
Sponsored.
no, definitely not. But yeah, that seems to work better. But I just think, yeah, I hate to dissuade anybody from like trying to use stuff. Like absolutely go try and use it, but it's not replacing junior developers.
It probably helps for folks to understand that like there's language models that are trained on certain data that has different strengths and weaknesses. So like when you're using, like, that's a great example. Like when you're using ChatGPT to write a thing, like it's been trained on the internet, whatever. But when you use like the Cody version, it's been trained on more code specific things and practices. So it's a tool, and you have to use the best tool for the job. And tools do lower the barrier for entry, which is great, but it's still not a autonomous thing. You can go to, I guess this is the day of like really weird like examples, but you can go to Sally Beauty Supply and try to buy, like, you can't just buy like this professional grade hair coloring stuff without a professional license or whatever. Like you have to be able to show that you have credentials. What?
Why do you know this?
My sister was a hairdresser.
Fabulous hair.
I mean, yes, but
Why do you know this yet don't act on it?
No. I'm getting compliments and dodging the But yeah, so you can't just go into Sally and just buy anything in the store. Like you have to be like, yeah, here's my certificate, or at least you used to anyway. Like here's my license. It says I can buy this professional grade whatever, because that means I know how to use it and I won't burn people's scalp off. So with AI, it's kind of the same thing. Like you have to know a bit to know what's right or wrong to be able to move forward safely.
See, that's not the position. And so the dark side of it, right, is that's not the positioning of this vibes coding, right? The positioning is, hey, check it out. We can fire all of our human developers who do these irritating things like sleep and eat and read Reddit.
Cost money.
And all that. And we can
benefits, healthcare.
Right, exactly. Human rights. We can buy these robots who will write the code for us. And that is a fantasy. This is not real. It's not a real thing. And it is insane to me that like the CEO of Zoom talks about this like all the time. I forget the dude's name. But he's like, yeah, and then like you could have all your developers writing code, and then you can have an avatar go to your Zoom meetings and then talk about the code, and then everyone will send avatars to the Zoom meetings and talk about code, and then the AI will take notes, and then it'll just happen forever. I'm like, dude, like that's not what people buy Zoom. People buy Zoom for this, for talking to humans.
Right. I think that what we're all kind of getting at is that humans will never be fully out of the equation. We some of us have used the term vibe coding a couple of times. I'm going to define it. It's basically for people who maybe don't have intimate details of the language or something that they're trying to develop in. You can put in like a few sentences into an LLM and basically say like, write me like a iOS app that will do my taxes, and then it'll like generate the entire thing. Probably the worst idea ever that could have come out. But I think so personally, I think that's fine, right? It's kind of like a good analogy, I guess, is like most of us, I think, when we are in the process of buying a house, we'll look for somebody else to actually build that house for us. We have specifications for the house, we know what we want the house to be like, but we'll ultimately like mostly rely on other people's expertise to build that house. But then like later on, when we're actually living in that house, we are ultimately responsible for any problems that arise, or any like when the roof leaks. Like you have to learn what you need to learn to fix that. I think the same is true of any sort of AI generated code. Like it's going to maybe make you more efficient up front, but in the long run, it will not save you from the ultimate costs of designing good, secure software. It just kind of is like pushing it down the road.
Well said. Yeah. Good. That's a good analogy. You said it wasn't, but I like it.
No, that's a great analogy. I do want to like say out loud, Dr. Angela Collier has a whole video kind of on this topic. She is a working physicist that sometimes talks about computer stuff, and she is amazing. And her videos go very, very long. Typically, this one's kind of on the short side, and it's called AI Does Not Exist, but it will ruin everything anyway. And it's pretty good. It's kind of around this whole like experts system that we all kind of depend on to make the world go.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, it's clear that AI has so many benefits, but it's also, you know, it's one step forward, two step back, basically, as far as like long-term applications. And so every company, of course, is exploring, including us, like how we become more efficient on, you know, getting tags out or detecting anomalous data, stuff like that. And we've had great success in doing that. But then we wouldn't use it to, you know, make those decisions on what we're going to prioritize next, because we know from experience, like what attackers go for, whatever, right? Like, so like it's a tool, but it is alarming to see so many organizations use it as kind of the solution and not just a wrench in your toolbox kind of thing. All right, so we are very close to time.
Gatekeeping, right? Yes, and we're close to time anyway.
So I want to hit. Oh, no, I just said I want to hit. I don't want to hit. I wanted to hit a few topics, but to clarify, what's up, Ty?
Nothing. I can talk about.
Okay.
Moving on. Thank you too.
So, yeah. The wrap up here. So, Census, you had a couple blogs last week. We had the JunOS and Red Penguin, and we had, hey, that's not my server. Do you want to expand on any of those? Or tease
I can
them?
do a quick rundown on I can tease the Red Penguin thing. So last week, Juniper published a little advisory about a new malware campaign targeting their MX series routers, their JunOS operating system. And it was pretty interesting because it looked like the actual attack vector was pretty complicated. And one of our researchers actually dug in and found some of like the residential proxy router administration interfaces that seem to be associated with the C2s deploying this malware. It's a really interesting look at how those services are like obfuscated and how operational relay boxes kind of appear in port scanning data, and highly worth a read.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then oh god, sorry.
That's not my server.
Yeah. So I love
Bobby
this
Hill
post.
voice.
And I love this post, and I'm really excited that we actually finally wrote about it, because we get a lot of weird questions on our team. I don't know if this happens to all of you as well, but we get some just like random, strange questions sometimes. And every
question we get is valid and appreciated.
I mean, I didn't say they weren't valid. They're just sort of strange sometimes. You're like, what is going on? And so this is actually an answer to one of those questions, where over the last, I don't know, year at least, we've had customers come to us and go, wait a minute, my certificate that I know is my certificate for sure is on this host that I definitely do not own. Something is wrong and I hacked. What's going on? And so we look in the data and we're like, wait a minute. Yeah, that doesn't seem like your host. Okay. So it turns out, like TLDR, this is a dive into this, but it has to do with how a couple of major CDNs actually handle null SNI requests. So they'll end up basically at the time of scan, you'll see some certificate for something that they proxy show up in the data, but it looks really questionable and suspicious. And so we actually, one of our folks wrote kind of a dive into like how this actually happens. It's really cool if you're into like stuff like that. It's just one of those really weird things that shows up in the data sometimes. And so now we're gonna this will be a thing you can go look at if you happen to see this or happen to be curious about it. Yeah, go take a look. It's an interesting thing.
I hope there's a Bobby Hill meme in there somewhere, because that's all I hear.
I don't know you.
Yeah, that's not my purse. I mean, that's my purse. Yeah. Run Zero.
Yeah. I read a blog.
You had a cybersecurity labeling for EOL and EOS.
We sure did. Yeah, me and Rob King, we were noodling around consumer labeling for end of life, end of service, Internet of Things stuff. Because the Center for Democracy and Technology and a bunch of other consumer advocacy groups put together some sample bill language of what it would look like. And we thought, great idea, crazy complicated. good luck is the TLDR on that. We'll be talking about this more tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah,
Okay,
tomorrow.
Run Zero Hour. Wednesday
Run
at
Zero
noon
Hour.
Central.
So check it out. Just Google Run Zero Hour. There's a sign up sheet, and you can come check it out some more. We'll talk about it there. But if you don't make it, well, then I guess you'll never know.
You'll have
Awesome.
FOMO.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for Grey Noise side, we had a blog on some SSRF exploitation that kind of surged and had some interesting overlaps and Capital One breach vibes, I guess is a good way of putting it. And then we have our webinar for the Bob and Andrew doing webinar for the oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank right now? This is terrible. The exploitation report of 2025. Internet exploited vulnerability. Oh my gosh, what the heck is it called? Dang it.
Mass exploitation.
Yes, thank you. Mass is the word I could not remember.
Yes.
That's on the 24th. Bob and Andrew will be diving into the details on that. Man, what a thing to total focus.
Is that as opposed to energy exploitation of 2024?
Energy is everywhere all the time, so
Right.
why not?
Okay.
And we do have RSA around the corner in May. We will be doing a Noise Fest or Noise Fest like activity. So if you've been to ours at Black Hat DEF CON week, very similar vibes and lots of fun, lots of community. We really appreciate, of course, our community and our customers and our friends and researchers out there. So definitely ping us and sign up if you would like to attend. With that, I'm going to read this AI written intro for the first time live, so this could be a mistake.
It's an outro.
And that wraps up, yeah. And that wraps up another shocking episode of Stormwatch. Remember, folks, if your router joins the Ballista Ballet, you'll be dancing to a hacker's tune in no time. Don't be the TP and TP link that gets flushed down the vulnerability drain.
Wow.
Keep your patches fresh and your paranoia fresher, because in the cyber weather, being unforgivable is truly unforgivable. Until next time, this is Stormwatch, where we're always one thunderclap ahead of the storm. Well, sorry. Bye, everyone.